On a bright early morning, in a modest single-story home in a vibrant Lagos neighborhood, the house is simple, with a faded green gate, surrounded by narrow streets filled with vendors and busy pedestrians. The sun peeks through the window, casting warm light on the small living room. The air smells faintly of jollof rice from the kitchen, and the hum of a radio broadcasting news in the background fills the space.
Demingbe sits cross-legged on the floor of the living room, his schoolbooks sprawled out before him. His father, Mr. Francis, stands over him, his hand on Demingbe's shoulder, urging him to focus. Demingbe, this is your future. You have to finish your homework before you can go outside to play with your friends, Mr. Francis insists, his voice firm but laced with hope. Demingbe looks up, frustration flickering across his young face. He glances toward the window, where the sounds of children laughing and playing in the street seem so far away. His mother, Mrs. Augustine, enters the room with a warm smile, carrying a tray of hot food. "Come and eat, Demingbe. You'll feel better after some good food," she says gently, placing the tray before him. Demingbe grumbles, pushing his books aside, and reaches for the food. His older sister, Titi, walks past him, rolling her eyes. She has already completed her homework and seems completely unfazed by the routine. Durojaye, Demingbe's older brother, looks up from his own work. "You know, little brother, if you don't get this done, you won't be able to do anything fun later," he advises. Demingbe nods half-heartedly, not fully aware yet of the deeper pressures his family is putting on him. Demingbe is walking home from school, his school bag bouncing with each step. He notices a group of older boys, the ones everyone whispers about, the ones who command respect in the neighborhood. They are gathered by a fruit stand, teasing the vendor and laughing. As Demingbe walks past, one of the boys, a rough-looking teenager named Chima, shoves him lightly. "Watch where you're going, small boy," he sneers, but there's a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "Sorry, Chima," Demingbe says, his voice small, but the insult stings. He has heard the stories, the boys like Chima who never back down from a fight, who don't apologize for their actions. Chima steps closer, his eyes narrowing. "What did you say?" he demands, his hand on Demingbe's chest. The crowd of boys around them begins to murmur. Demingbe's heart races, but something inside him stirs. For a brief moment, he remembers his father's teachings, of standing tall, of being respectful, of being a good boy. But instead of backing down, Demingbe stands his ground. "I said, sorry, but don't push me again," Demingbe replies, his voice gaining strength. The crowd grows silent. Then, without warning, Chima shoves him hard, knocking him to the ground. For a split second, Demingbe feels the sting of the rough pavement against his skin. But anger rises within him, and he springs to his feet, fists clenched. Without thinking, he lunges forward, throwing a punch. The blow lands, surprising everyone, even Demingbe himself. The crowd erupts in cheers and shouts, and Chima, taken aback, steps back with a snarl. "Not bad, small boy," he mutters, a grudging respect forming in his eyes. That day, Demingbe walks home with a mixture of emotions, pride, fear, and a spark of something darker. He has tasted the rush of power, and it has hooked him. As a child, Demingbe struggled with the expectations placed on him. His siblings, older and more obedient, excelled academically, while Demingbe was constantly in trouble. He found solace in the streets, running with the boys who spent their time loitering and getting into trouble. The streets of Surulere became his real education. He was drawn to the rough characters, those who didn't follow the rules, but seemed to command respect. Demingbe's rebellious nature only grew stronger as he matured. He would often skip school, spending his days with street vendors and young men who frequented the local bars and clubs. He learned the language of the streets, harsh, quick, and unpredictable. His respect for authority dwindled, and soon his relationship with his parents began to sour. One evening, after an explosive argument with his father about skipping school yet again, Demingbe made a decision that would change his life forever. He left home that night, not with the intent to return anytime soon. The lessons his parents tried to impart seemed meaningless to him now. The streets, with their raw energy and dark promise of power, were where Demingbe felt truly alive. It wasn't long before Demingbe became known as a force to be reckoned with in the community. He joined forces with local gangs, initially as a small-time player, but soon he rose through the ranks, using his street smarts and growing reputation to gain influence. The streets of Surulere, with their constant battles over turf, provided the perfect arena for someone like Demingbe. He became notorious for instigating fights and clashes between rival groups, and his name was whispered with a mixture of fear and respect. Demingbe wasn't just a thug. He was an instigator, the spark that lit the fire of chaos whenever tensions rose in the community. He had no respect for authority and no fear of the police, who, more often than not, were forced to turn a blind eye to his antics because of his widespread influence. Despite his bravado and street smarts, Demingbe couldn't avoid the inevitable. His name became synonymous with trouble. The police were always on his tail, and while his gang connections kept him safe for a time, it was only a matter of time before his actions caught up with him. His last run-in with the law led to his arrest, and for the first time, Demingbe felt the full weight of his actions. But even as the police drove him away in cuffs, there was no sign of regret on his face. He knew the streets. The game was never over, only paused. Demingbe, the local thug of Surulere, was down but not out. For as long as Surulere remained, so too would Demingbe's shadow linger in the hearts and minds of its people. In Surulere, the name Demingbe is both a warning and a legend. His story, like many others who grew up in the harsh realities of the streets, is a reminder of how the environment can shape a person's destiny. For some, it's a path of success. For others, a path of destruction. Demingbe may have been a product of his surroundings, but his story is not the only one. In the heart of Surulere, the streets are always watching, and for those who find themselves caught in its grasp, there is no telling where the path will lead.